Good morning, everybody, and thank you for watching this short presentation of our paper. In this project, we build up a DSG model with a financial sector to analyze the effectiveness of a negative interest rate policy. This topic has been extensively discussed in many research papers, starting from the contribution of Brunner-Meyer and Kobe, where they showed that negative rates might result in undesired contractionary effect if some conditions are met. In the same strand of literature, Eggerson and co-authors also built up a DSG model to analyze the effectiveness of this policy, but they found that negative rates are always contractionary, as the responses of output and other macro and financial variables are always worse than the one which characterize a model with a zero lower bound, so when the central bank do not set negative rates. Their model is based on these four main assumptions which I've listed here. So households can only save through banks' deposits. These deposits have a lower bound in zero. And banks are also just funded through households' deposit, and they extend loans to borrowers and invest in central bank reserves, which instead can reach negative values. In this setup, the contractionary effect can be explained by looking at two features. First, when assuming that households only save through deposits and the return on deposits is bounded by zero, implies that when the central bank reduces the policy rate into negative territory, households will not respond to this stimulus, because they will set their consumption path looking to an interest rate which will be stuck at zero. And therefore, in this situation, there is no longer an intertemporal substitution effect of monetary policy. Moreover, when the central bank reserves earn negative returns and banks cannot pass this reduction on their funding side, their profit margin will shrink, and therefore banks will react to this, reducing the amount of available credit or increasing the loan rate. And therefore it yields to a contractionary effect on the economy. Now, what we do in our paper is that we relax assumptions 1 and 3 of Eggerson and co-authors, which we found to be counterfactual in the euro area. Indeed, in the euro area, households mainly save through deposits, but they also rely on other assets such as shares or mutual fund, and the return on these assets is likely affected by the interest rate, the negative rate policy. Moreover, we also extend the composition of bank liability, assuming that banks can be funded through deposit or through market type assets such as bank bonds. So in our model, households have this choice between commercial bank deposit and investment fund shares. Commercial bank extend loans to the production sector and invest in central bank reserves. Moreover, they are funded not only through deposit, but also through bank bonds. And these bank bonds are bought by investment fund. And on the asset side of the investment fund, there would be therefore these bank bonds and risk-free assets such as government bonds. The main takeaway of our paper is that when introducing additional household saving option and an additional funding of banks, there are additional transmission mechanisms which can overturn the contractionary effect of the negative rate policy. Allowing for a larger composition of households' portfolio indeed partially restore the intertemporal substitution effect of monetary policy, while assuming that banks can also rely on market type funding implies that banks can benefit from the reduction in the return on these assets, which will be triggered by the negative rate policy. In this short presentation, I will just show you one result. So on the left side, there are responsive of output, inflation, deposit, and policy rate to a consumption preference shock in a model which is based on the same assumption as Eggerson and co-authors. And as you can see, the responses of output and inflation in the negative rate case, which is given by the blue dashed line, is always below the one which characterizes a zero lower bound model, so a model where the central bank do not reduce the interest rate into negative territories. And therefore, negative rates are always contractionary. However, as the right side picture shows, when opening the door to this new transmission mechanism, which we analyze in our paper, this is no longer the case, as the responses of output and inflation in the negative rate case lies now above the one which characterizes a zero lower bound case. Thank you for watching this short presentation, and I'll be happy to take questions and share you more details on the paper in the upcoming